Let's get now to Dinesh D'Souza. Oh my God, this is horrifying. This guy is disgusting. I'm just warning you. Get the kids out of the room, please.
Wow. This is incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I've ever spoken at a rally before. This is awesome. All
There's a reason for that.
Flags, the hats, the enthusiasm. This is fantastic. Hey, you know, I was 17 years old when I first saw America.
Right.
I was an exchange student from India. I came on the airplane initially into JFK, and I kind of remember the airplane descending, and I looked exhaustedly out of the window, and I kind of saw the skyline of New York. I saw the Statue of Liberty in the distance. And I thought to myself, even then, when I wasn't really thinking politically in any way, I thought to myself, Dinesh, your life is going to be very different from this moment on.
How many lives could I ruin in this country?
You're moving from the margin of the world to the center. And you're coming to a country that is different than other countries. Later, I would understand that, you know, historians call this American exceptionalism. But for me, what American exceptionalism meant is that I was coming to a country where if I stayed, I could become the author of my own destiny.
And of his own propaganda books.
I could become the architect of my own future. I could be in the driver's seat of my own life. When we think of America, we think of opportunity. We think of the great material abundance of America. And I did see all that. In fact, I was placed to live for the first few months with a host family. This was in Patagonia, Arizona, a small town on the Mexican border. And my host family says, oh, Dinesh, we've planned all this sightseeing for you. We're going to take you to the Grand Canyon. We're going to take you to Tombstone, Arizona, the site of the gunfight at the OK Corral. And I was like, guys, you know, I'd like to do all that, but the kind of sightseeing I have in mind is I'd like you to take me to the supermarket because I want to see 35 types of cheese and 40 types of ice cream. You know, the rich guy lives well everywhere in the world. One of the things that struck me about America is that it's a country where the ordinary guy can have a good life.
Healthcare?
And it isn't just about making your life better or having more. It's also about the notion that in other countries your destiny is to a large degree given to you.
Hey guys, I do want to briefly interrupt this disgusting screed. Apparently, there has just been an attempt to hijack an airplane. There is video of it. And what we know right now, we'll look at the video in a second. The man made an announcement that we needed to be close to our oxygen masks and proceeded to try and open the door. They then called all the strong men to the front of the plane to restrain him. We ended up landing in Oklahoma City. He was trying to open the door to the outside, not the cockpit. Look at this just happened. Absolute chaos. This was a flight from LAX to Atlanta.
No, they're the enemy. Stop! I'm going to right now. Go to jail. I beg you. I beg you. I beg you. I got you. Go down. Go down. Stop. Get it down. Keep it down.
Now, fortunately, it would be extremely difficult to actually get it open in the air, even if he knew how to do it. the force on the the door is built in a very particular way where, if I recall correctly, the pressure pulls on the door and you have to open the door in, and at altitude it would be extraordinarily difficult to do. But the guy was taken down and grabbed. I'll look for more information about this, but that is the latest that I've heard. Now we all have all the same information. Back to Dinesh.
I felt the sting of this America myself when I stood up in a courtroom and I heard the following phrase: United States of America versus Dinesh D'Souza. Whoa.
D'Souza.
No immigrant wants to hear that sound. And then, as I began to deal with these, I would call them Obama lawyers. In other words, they're lawyers that are part of the Southern District of New York. This is the very outfit that's going after Trump. By the way, headed at the time by this Asian Indian guy named Preet Bharara.
Whoa, Asian Indian.
Head waiter, I call him. But these guys, I realized, were not interested in any kind of justice at all. They were like, Dinesh, did you exceed the campaign finance laws? I'm like, you know what? I was trying to help a college friend of mine, and so I did.
Oh, so you broke the law.
I expect the same penalty as anybody else who did the same thing. And they were like, not so fast. We're going to get you on bank fraud. I'm like, bank fraud? They go, yeah, because you took your money out of your bank account. I go, what? They said, we're going to get you on mail fraud. And I go, mail fraud? And they go, yeah, because you put your check in the mail.
Whoa.
And I was like, I turned to my lawyer and I said, what's really going on? And he goes, what's going on, Dinesh, is that these guys, these sons of bitches, if I can call them that, they're taking the same laws that were passed to go after ISIS and the mafia, and they're using it against fellow American citizens. Why? Because from the perspective of Obama and the people around him, you're not a critic, you're not a dissident, you're not even an immigrant who doesn't understand America, you're an enemy and they have to take you out. That's their psychology. And little did I know then, this is going back to 2012, 2013, that all of this little case of mine would then be multiplied 100-fold, and we'd see it with General Flynn, we'd see it with Papadopoulos.
They were all sandbagged guys. It's all unfair.
Well, what is it? It's the gangsterization of the left. And who is the head of the snake? How did this start? How did we get this America? You know, it started with Obama.
Right. Everything was fine.
He is the snake. Now, the reason I say this is because before Obama, I'm not saying that the Democrats were doing great, but the Democrats were sort of in the Jimmy Carter mode. And Jimmy Carter, I think if you were to give an award for presidential nincompoopery to the dumbest, most ineffective president, certainly of the 20th century, I think Jimmy Carter wins hands down.
What a great
Now,
speaker.
some people may say, well, actually, he's getting some competition from Biden. Because here's another guy who really doesn't, he's sitting in the canoe.
Aren't
but
we
he's
in the
not
21st
manning the
century now?
oars. I don't think he even knows there is a canoe.
This guy's really boring, yeah.
So he moves his mouth, but most of the time, if you look at his eyes, they're vacant. He's staring mindlessly into the distance. He's, in a sense, a ventriloquist doll, and others are manipulating the strings. But coming back to Obama,
probably Antifa holds the
my
string.
great sin really was not giving $20,000 to my college buddy Wendy Long. My real sin was to take on the most powerful man in the world, this vindictive narcissist Obama, in the White House by making a movie about him.
The movie was a disaster. It was one of the worst movies.
And to give you an idea of what a low, disgusting, nauseating character this fellow is, it's really his hypocrisy that I think I exposed most of all. Because here's a guy who's been going around, he's still going around doing it. We are a brother's keeper. The fact of the matter is, this is a guy who doesn't lift a finger to help anyone in his own family. In the movie, if you saw 2016 Obama's America, I interviewed Obama's brother, George, who lives in a hut in Nairobi in conditions that resemble Slumdog Millionaire.
Yeah, really explosive interview.
Basically, one of Obama's aunts died in Kenya. This is actually his father's sister. And the family had to appeal to Kenyans to provide money, to donate money for the funeral. A couple of years ago, I was in my office in the King's College, and I get a call, and it's from Obama's brother, George Obama. And George says to me, Dinesh, he goes, I hate to call you. He goes, but my little son, who's at the time 6 months or 9 months old, is very sick. Could you please send me $1,000? And I had met George Obama when I was interviewing him for the movie, so I'm like, George, and he's a little bit of a shyster, so I said, George, are you at the hospital now? He goes, yeah.
Shyster is anti-Semitic, right?
Hand the phone over to the nurse. And then I asked the nurse, I said, is it true that George has a son and he's very sick? And the nurse goes, yes, it's true. So I said, George, I'll send you $1,000 by Western Union, but before I do that, I have one question for you. Isn't there someone else you can call?
Oh, no, apparently the connection to Shylock is not accurate.
No.
It's not clear. It's not clear.
Barack Obama. This is who he is. But he hates to have it pointed out, because if you do, he wants to go after you. And the good news is that even though I was a little dumb, I was a little naive,
Uh-oh.
I should have realized there's a big sign on my back. The simple truth of it is, they took a bunch of shots at me, and I'm still here.
Imagine being at this thing. I would be so bored.
Let's just say they tried to silence me, and it didn't work. They even tried to give me mandatory psychiatric therapy, and that didn't work.
It didn't work. That's true. It definitely failed. Yeah. I agree on that.
And then in the summer of 2018, I was at home, and the phone rings, and I pick it up.
It clearly didn't work.
It's Trump. Wow. He's like, hey, Dinesh, I'm here with John Kelly. You know John Kelly, don't you? I'm like, no. I know who he is. But then Trump says, well, you know, I got to turn to your case. He goes, I got to tell you, from the beginning, I knew it was total bullshit. And I was like, And then Trump began to talk about my case, but I realized I wasn't even listening to him, because I knew what was happening. What was happening is that
this is a weird story.
I was about to get a presidential pardon, which would give me all my rights back. And I can vote again. But even more important was what went, and this is kind of interesting about a conversation, the things that go unsaid. And what went unsaid, he didn't say it, I didn't say it, we both knew it, is that in the act of doing that, Trump knew, and I knew, that he was delivering a giant up yours to the Obama administration.
Right. That's actually all that Trump cared about. This guy's really thirsty, huh?
And then he basically said, Dinesh, listen, don't tell anyone about this until I tweet about it in the morning. Which brings me to the issue of censorship. Because, look, I did not believe in the America that I came to in 1978 that we would be at this point, in which we have seen a sustained assault, not just on our economy. We're not just dealing with the kind of socialism that reaches into your pocketbook, undermines the currency through inflation. wants
funny.
confiscatory
Biden has literally changed nothing about tax policy yet. How could it's already socialism, Dinesh?
Taxism was all about class warfare. And the Democrats are practicing class warfare, by the way, not on behalf of the poor against the rich, but on behalf of the rich against the poor.
Ooh.
On behalf of the elite against the ordinary guy. That's their class warfare. But it's far more than that. They have unleashed gangs, paramilitary gangs on the street, Antifa, Black Lives Matter. All of this is done in the name of justice. What justice? Anti-fascism. Now look, I'm not scared of these guys. Anti-fascism. These are basically misfit kids coming out of mom's basement. Complete losers. Hey mom, where's my Halloween costume? I'm gonna go fight some fascists. Dummies. But they're not gonna pick on somebody who's their size. They're gonna go to some restaurant and harass the people who are eating over there. Are they fascists? How do you know? They burn small businesses, they torch churches.
He's having an entire bottle of water.
A lesson. And by the law. The law needs to do to them what their parents didn't do, which is grab them by the lapels and hold them accountable. Now, it's one thing to say that academia is rotted from the core. It is. It's one thing to say that the media is rotted from the core. It is. These people are habitual liars. They're not biased. They're not mistaken. They know the truth, but they conceal it. I'll give you an example, a concrete example in my own case. Several years ago, a reporter trying to do a hit job on me, and this was digging into my past when I was a young renegade at the Dartmouth Review in my college years. I'm 60, but we're in an age where people attack you for what you did when you were 20. And so this guy goes, when Dinesh was a student, he published an article in which he said, the question is not whether women should be educated at Dartmouth, the question is whether women should be educated at all. Which I confess is kind of funny. Except, I didn't say it. Some other guy wrote this in an article, and it appeared in the Dartmouth Review, but it wasn't my word. So I called
This is depressing.
By the way, this was a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer, Fox Butterfield of the New York Times. Notice that I always like to name names. And so I thought, in decency, let me just call up Fox Butterfield, and I'll say, hey, Mr. Butterfield, you just got it wrong. You tried to score a hit on me, but you missed because I didn't say it. And Fox Butterfield goes, well, you wrote an article about the Dartmouth Review years later in which you quoted that line. So you did say it. And I said, if I said it by quoting it, you've now said it by quoting my article. But what I'm getting at is that this guy was so duplicitous, so shameless, so utterly lacking in basic journalistic integrity, and he's a model of the profession. He's at the top newspaper in the country. Well, I think we now realize what we're dealing with media. We're dealing with people who are hitmen for the left. That's how you have to look at them. And so my simple recipe for the media is, do not believe anything they say, even when it's true. Now, this may seem a little shocking for me to say.
The crowd's already doing that.
The proviso, even when it's true. But here's my reasoning. Let's say you meet a guy and he's a habitual liar. 75% of the time he's lying. 25% of the time he's telling the truth. Who the hell has the time to sort it out? He's a liar. Don't believe one word he says, even if it's true. And the same is true of the media. Whatever they say, don't believe it. Why? Because if you don't believe it, you're likely to be right. Most likely you'll be right. Once in a while, you'll be wrong. But then
Believe
you can
Trump
figure it out for
instead, yeah.
yourself.
What Trump says you can
It's
believe.
really important, by the way. It's really bad that we on the right have let the left develop this monopoly on the institutions of culture. The media, Hollywood, the entertainment industry. But now we see how aggressive they are, how discontented they are. They're not content, even though they have almost, you think they'd be like, wow, we got academia, we got the elementary and secondary schools, we got the media, we got Hollywood. That's enough. No, they want the NFL. They want the Boy Scouts. They want the music industry. They're even going after these corporations, the woke corporations. One of the things that I find in terms of censorship, it's not just digital censorship.
Right.
Yeah, that's the tip of the iceberg. And look how fundamentally dishonest these digital censors are. Basically, if you follow the Fauci emails, look at the way in which he was communicating with Zuckerberg, communicating with Bill Gates. He was communicating regularly with Chris Cuomo at CNN. Why? Because that's Fauci. He's a PR guy. And he's all about controlling the discourse. Fauci knew, you can tell from his emails, that, hey, the virus might have come from the wet market, but there's not one iota of evidence to this date that it did. None. Nobody's tested wet market guys and shown that they had the virus before anybody else. The Chinese won't allow that kind of testing. The virus probably came from the lab. And it was probably made in the lab. I don't
There's
mean
no
made
evidence
out
of that.
nothing. I mean, they take these deadly viruses and they make them more contagious. And
There's
they make
no
them
evidence
more
of that.
lethal. And so, and this is done, by the way, with support of people like Fauci, who are funding American labs that do the same thing and work in collaboration with Wuhan. So what happened is, when they realized that there was a global epidemic, however it got out, and I'm not even ruling out the possibility that it was a biological weapon, it was deliberately released.
There's no evidence of that, though.
You think the Chinese are sort of too high and too moral to do that?
See, what's weird about this is he says, you know, Fauci didn't present evidence that it came from the wet market, and so we shouldn't believe that. And he says, could be a bioweapon, he's not presenting any evidence for that. And absent evidence to believe that, wouldn't we believe the simplest explanation?
Remember how the Chernobyl accident shut down the whole nuclear industry for a whole generation? They realized that's going to happen to us. And so they realized not only do we have to pretend that we didn't do it, it's kind of like a guy it's one thing if you make a mistake and you hit somebody on the highway, it's a whole other thing when you do hit and run. And then you say, let's go wash the car. Let's take off all the traces of blood. And then you go one step further. Let's blame it on some other guy. Let's let him take the responsibility. That's what's going on here. And so what you see here, and it's very dismaying in America, as I say, it's one thing if it's media, it's one thing if it's academia, but who knew that our health agencies were corrupt?
He's got a rap.
Who knew that our police agencies of government? My idea when I was a kid of the FBI was gotten from the movie The Untouchables. Wow, these are guys going after the mafia. They're taking down the bad guys. No, they are the bad guys. Yeah, they are the bad guys. And you know why? Because a thug with a badge is a lot more dangerous than a thug on the street. A thug with a badge comes with the authority of law. Madam, would you open your door? Here's my badge. And so corruption at this level should be punished 5 times more than corruption of the ordinary kind.
Says who? What is this guy talking about?
And yet, you see in case after case that there's no accountability at all. Now, censorship. I noticed it's reaching a totally new level when I made the movie Trump Card, which is the latest film.
Great film. Oh,
If you
yeah.
haven't seen it, by the way, it's worth watching. It's based on my book, United States of Socialism.
It's terrible.
And that's where we're headed. We're headed to Caracas. We're headed to Venezuela. We're headed to a society in which if we don't stop this, we will see total breakdown. Very bad. But interestingly, when I was making the movie Trump Card, I noticed that all kinds of people who had worked with me before, people in Hollywood, big movie houses and producers, people
They suddenly hate me. Now that they know me, they hate me.
All of them backed off when they saw the word Trump. Trump's name was sort of radioactive. The company that made the trailer for the movie Infidel, terrific people, great trailer. They're like, we'll make Infidel, we won't make Trump Card. We're out.
Right.
When the movie came out, Trump Card did, suddenly you found it was supposed to be up on Amazon Prime. You couldn't get it. You got it eventually, but really close to the election. Thousands of people ordered DVDs. They were like out of stock on day 2, even though they had the DVDs. So what you have here is a new phenomenon, which is even the institutions of commerce. At one time when I studied economics, you get the idea that these people are motivated by business. They want to make a profit. They want more customers. They're motivated by money. No. You think Jack Dorsey is motivated by money? He has a lot of money. He's motivated by ideology. He's probably also been motivated by a demented psychology. These guys, I mean,
You would know.
Dorsey, he's not a normal person. He hasn't had a normal life. He probably wasn't treated as normal in high school. So these are guys who were treated as dorks and nerds and weirdos because they are.
Dinesh was the cool guy in high school.
Dorsey
That's
with
why
his
he's so
sidekick
normal.
Zuckerberg's a robot. And what you have is these guys now, about 4 of them, unbelievably are controlling the public square and the public discourse of the United States of America. That's a fact. That's a fact. And people say, well, you know, even on the right, you'll have Republicans, and this is the problem with the old school, is that the old school Republican, or even the Reagan Republican, doesn't realize we're not living in the Reagan era. Wake up. We're facing threats far more serious than we did then. And so the strategies that worked then don't work now.
Yeah, the crowd's dead.
So stop acting like Rip Van Winkle.
How long has this guy been going? Do we know?
So what's happening now is that there is an effort to shut us down. There's an effort to turn us into worms. That was the point that George Orwell makes in 1984. There's a scene that I recreated in the movie Trump Card, in which the hero, this guy named Winston, has been captured by the state, the socialist state. It's called Big Brother. And Big Brother, the interrogator representing Big Brother, a guy named O'Brien, is trying to convince Winston to admit that 2 + 2 is 5.
Dude, the crowd hasn't read the book, man. This is not the crowd for literature.
Yes, you are. 2 + 2 is 5. Say it. And Winston goes, listen, you've taken my money, you've destroyed my family, you've taken my house, you've taken everything from me, but the one freedom I'm going to hold on to, I'm not going to give it up, is the freedom to insist that 2 + 2 is 4.
Yeah.
And so they grab him, and they do to him what they're doing to the January 6th protesters: solitary confinement, psychological torture, sensory deprivation, no food. He starts to have hallucinations.
Wait a second.
And he breaks down.
They're denying the Trump rioters food, and they're doing sensory deprivation? This is the first I've heard of that.
5. Can I go now?
Please go.
And here is where the plot really takes off, because Big Brother says, in the form of this guy O'Brien, he says, no, Winston, you can't go. Why? Because in your mind, you still think it's 4. In other words, we, the state, are not content with you publicly saying one thing and believing another. You have to believe what we say, inwardly. And so, we're going to continue to torture you and break you down until you give not just outward, but inward assent. So this is really what socialist states are after. This is the true meaning of tyranny, because it doesn't just crush your body, it also crushes your soul. It crushes your soul. Now, are we going to let this happen in America, yes or no? No. And we are in the position to stop it in all kinds of ways. We just have to realize that this is not the peacetime civics book debating society politics of the 1980s. Rather, we have to do to them what they are doing to us.
This
That's
is soul
what's gonna
crushing,
make
I
them
agree.
stop. During the Civil War, early in the war, around 1863, Lincoln decided for the first time to deploy black soldiers. And the Confederacy, outraged by this, passed an edict, a law, that said any black Union soldier captured by the Confederacy will be shot. This would not, by the way, be the fate of white soldiers who would be normal prisoners of war, but black soldiers would be executed. And when this came to Lincoln's desk, he issued what has now come to be known by historians as the Order of Retaliation. And the Order of Retaliation is very simple. For every black Union soldier executed against the laws of war.
Yeah, it's actually hard to imagine a worse lineup of just nonsense. It's completely vapid, meaningless nonsense of the highest or lowest level. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just drivel. And the crowd is like, they sort of seem into it, but they also kind of don't. I guess there's just nothing better to do in New Richmond, Wisconsin. I don't know.
I don't know how I'm doing on time.
You're way over,
What
dude.
I want to do is talk a little bit about where I think we need to go.
Oh, no.
In the years ahead.
Oh, God.
Because a lot of people naively think, yes, we should send speakers to the universities to try to turn them around. You can't turn them around. They're too far gone. Let's try to make movies in Hollywood. We should. I do. But Hollywood as an institution is aesthetically and morally rotted. It's gone. You want to watch a movie? Go watch an old movie. Watch a movie made by a Hollywood that at one time did love America. Watch a movie that celebrates heroism and family and patriotism and individualism.
Yeah.
Not the sick.
Let me get caught up just making sure I'm thanking everybody. Afro Thunder and Bowflex Man grabbed a Twitch Prime subscriptions, which I really, really appreciate. I also want to say thank you over on my website. William Bishop III just grabbed a membership with the coupon code MikePillow50. It's a one-day coupon code. Carlos Gonzalez grabbed a beautifully discounted membership, and Leonard Ursery also signing up with the coupon code MikePillow50. At least we're turning it into something good, because it is vile and disgusting what's going on here.
What's called anti-Americanism is actually a healthy moral response against these sickos.
Ziccos.
Now, censorship. I think we've got, this is the issue of all issues. It's
Not
the
really.
issue that
Because it's
is
not
more
happening.
than voter fraud. Why? Because voter fraud is one thing, but if you can't even talk about it, that's a whole other thing.
Right.
And the very fact that we can't talk about it makes the whole thing, let's just say, a little suspicious. Right? It's kind of like, and the same is true, by the way, of these voter integrity laws. The left's reaction tells you everything you need to know. It's kind of like if I have a maid that comes over to my house once a week, and suddenly I notice that my wedding ring or my watch has gone missing. I'm like, I wonder, did the maid take it? Maid goes, no, I didn't take it. No. So So I say, okay, I don't know, but what I'm going to do going forward is I'm going to make sure I put my watch in the safe. And what I'm going to do is also have a couple of cameras so I can kind of see what's going on in my house when I'm not there.
Right.
And one of them made response by saying, oh no, that would be racist. It will reduce my incentive. It will reduce the incentive of people of color to come and work in your house. And I'm like, I'm a person of color. This has nothing to do with race. This has something to do with my watch that went missing last month. So the intense opposition to establishing reasonable methods of preventing this in the future tells you, makes you smell a rat. It confirms your suspicion that something very bad must have happened. Because if it didn't, they'd be all for the audit. Come take a look at the votes. Let's do 5 recounts. Maricopa, we welcome it. They're scared of Maricopa because if Maricopa falls, Arizona falls. If Arizona falls, Georgia's next. That's why they're scared.
This is wild. Now the crowd's into it. Now the crowd's into it. 5 recounts. Can you imagine? Yeah, do 6. Who's going to oppose number 6, huh? That's suspicious.
And for the press, it's all about playing this little namby-pamby game. So like right before I come up here, I'm cornered by some guy, I'm writing an article for Rolling Stone. I'm like, so? He's like, do you endorse Mike Lindell's theories? I'm like, I need to see what the hell has been going on. I want the facts. And what annoys me is I don't see adjudication of the kinds of things that people are worried about. If you want to have a democracy where people believe in the system, why not have open adjudication? Well, people are making a lot of baseless claims. Well, a claim is only baseless until it's adjudicated. Then it has a base.
Man.
So let's see. That's all I'm saying. I'm taking the agnostic position. I want to see.
The problem with these guys constantly claiming they just want to see, they're just asking the questions, is they'll never be... We've done all of this stuff already. We've done it. They will never be satisfied. And I did a really good interview with Andy Norman earlier this week. Good in the sense that he was really good in it. Not patting myself on the back. He was just really good in it. Where he explains that there's a difference between healthy skepticism and unending cynicism, which can be weaponized. And that's exactly what they're doing here. And he's weaponizing it while drinking just liters of water.
Of a namby-pamby way. So we say things like, I don't like what Disney's doing. I'm not going to go to Disney.
All right.
I'm going to cancel my subscription to Disney Plus.
We'll do it then.
Nah, they don't care about that. What you have to figure out is how you can do something that causes them intense and repeated pain. That's what you have to think about. Now, a couple of years ago, in 2014, 2015, I published a book called America, a defense of a kind of rational patriotism. My motto was the motto of Edmund Burke, who said,
those
to love
books
our country,
are so stupid.
Our country should be lovely. Anyway, my book is out there. It's doing really well. And suddenly I get a call from a...
there's so many interesting things to read. Like I've got a stack of books. I just read Red Notice by Bill Browder. I'm reading Blitz Scaling by Reid Hoffman. Super interesting about rapidly scaling businesses. And there's just so much in anything with philosophy. Who would go and read this guy's book as what you choose to read? It's got to be people who don't read anything else, right? I can't even imagine.
My book. So it could be that there's some store manager that's like mad and like, let's move Dinesh's books in the back. He's like, no, your book is unavailable in any American Costco in the whole nation.
Costco.
And I thought to myself, wow, how's that going to happen?
He has a right to sell in
The only way
Costco.
for it to happen is for the CEO or somebody very high up to give an order, pull this guy's books out of Costco. Now, how does that happen? Think about it. The way that happens is like this. The CEO of Costco is a huge Obama supporter. So what happened, and I'm only inferring this, but it's going to be something very close to this.
Okay.
Is some
So
big
he doesn't
Obama
know.
guy, someone, you know,
He has
like
no idea.
Rahm Emanuel,
No evidence.
walks into Costco.
He admits.
Says, oh my God, there's Dinesh's book. Let's make a couple of phone calls. And so Costco, very eager to please, says, okay, Mr. Emanuel, or okay, Mr. Whoever, we'll pull the book.
Right.
That's what happens.
And there it is.
And you may think, that's it. What else can we do? Costco's
Adjudicated.
a giant corporation, tens of billions of dollars. Well, here's what I'm giving you this story because it shows kind of the way to fight back.
Yeah.
So what happens is this journalist who called me writes an article on a website. It's a small website. It's called WorldNet Daily. And he exposes this, and people
Toxic
get really
conspiracy
mad. There are
website.
about 1,000 people raging against Costco.
Disgusting
but
website.
On the WorldNet Daily website.
Yeah, that website is
And Costco
banned.
couldn't care less. But then somebody in that group had a brilliant idea, and this is the kind of idea you should spend half your day thinking about.
right. At
The
least.
idea is, why are we raging on WorldNet Daily? Let's all mosey over to the Costco website and let's trash the Costco website.
More canceling. They're supposed to be
Why?
against this stuff.
Because Costco does a big chunk of its global business off of its website.
Right.
And so what happened is, this little snowball began...
Go leave bad reviews on the one-ply toilet paper that Costco sells. Really hit them where it hurts, guys.
And these people were a little pissed because not only were they complaining about my book, but they were going to every single Costco product on the site and announcing that it sucks. The grills suck. The food sucks. The clothes are horrible. They're cheaply made. And they would post photos of themselves cutting up their Costco executive.
Hey, by the way, Costco sells clothes? I've never been to a Costco. Do they sell clothes? I didn't know that.
Now, this is what I call activism. Why? Because it is a direct kick.
They do?
in
Oh,
the
interesting.
nuts. Literally, once this happened, within one day, I get an emergency phone call from Costco. The CEO wants to fly me up to Seattle to talk to me one-on-one.
Emergency.
Buys my ticket. I go up there, and I kid you not, the little weasel is actually crying.
Oh,
He's
shut
crying.
up.
And the first words out of his mouth is, Dinesh, you are destroying Costco. I'm like,
Could this be a real
a
story?
multi-billion-dollar corporation? Not bad. Not bad. Who's next? So, anyway, Brandon, I'm almost done. So basically,
Please, get off.
the bottom line of it is, I said to him, hey, listen, I'm not trying to pick a fight with you. I said, you have antagonized your own customers. What kind of a businessman are you? A lot of your customers are conservative. Why would you take a Patriots book out of your store on the 4th of July? What kind of business judgment does that show? And so I left. I left on good terms. I flew back to San Diego, and literally by the time I landed, Costco had reversed its decision. Not only did they put my books back, but they constructed a giant standee. So when my movie came out, I had hundreds of DVDs exhibited all over Costco. And in all honesty, I've had excellent relations with them ever since. I wasn't out to get them, I was just out to reform them.
Right.
But the way to reform them is to make sure they hear you. So when it comes to Disney Plus, when it comes to Lockheed, when it comes to all these corporations,
He called Marilyn
make
Lockheed.
sure they hear you. They're not the lion, you're the lion. Make sure that they hear you roar. Thank you very much.
Leave fraudulent reviews to get attention is the message from Dinesh D'Souza. There he goes. Wow, what a speech. What oratory. Did he also say that they were doing something with BVDs? Oh my God, he's back. Why is he back?
If I can say one brief thing before I leave. I'm
Please
now
don't.
doing a daily podcast, guys.
Oh no.
I do it in audio and video. It's on audio on Apple, Spotify, Google.
It's on Apple.
Video. It's on YouTube. It's on Rumble. I'm going to put it up on Frank's speech.
It's on Orange and Banana as well.
It's my chance. I've never had a regular podium, but this is my way every day to identify the left, identify the bad guys, and give it to them. Thank you very much.
There it is. He's never seen a grift he didn't like.
Dinesh D'Souza.
Dinesh.